The way west took the caravan through unfavorable trails bypassed during their initial descent into the valley. Slower, but safer. The savant method of attack signaled their lack of presence and mobility this far into the Rutland's rockside. In Avis's lands, whose scouts watched from underlying caverns, they could take advantage of a recent avalanche blocking their initial ingress through the Whitetail Gorge. While the Arten's western range cast shorter shadows than those along the Sevnantes-Serran border, overgrowth thick as cream resisted their crossing. The able dismounted to rope trunks, hitch stumps, and rolled stones from Rook roads centuries into degradation. Colonies of slick blue moss lapped up overflow from nearby creeks slipping through cobble cracks. The work hard, the way long, Gregor instructed Reyth watch their rear with grid-aligned flights of raspberry. Never before had he felt eased by an artifice. As yet another night fell over the westward travellers, the remaining wagons drew together to form camp. Aside from rotating sentries, their party gathered under a quilted tarp drawn over the wagons to net off mosquitoes, finding fill before the rain rose the Arten's rain shadow. Before the clouds could settle, Gregor joined a handful plotting a ceremonious pilgrimage to honor the dead. Arik guided Mira through rites he'd become too incapable to perform. She placed a stone stag effigy in a Tepo's basket and wrapped a sarcophagus from a quat blanket. Mira lay the child to rest on a toppled slab along with two others who'd met the witherer's end on the journey so far. Arik spoke, calling shepherds to this Agla to take the child into the next life. Gregor caught Schneider's glance and matched it. Triarch Brassers, like he, of a more secular heterodoxy, had reputation for the disregard of ritual and ceremony. Gregor would give him this, though, and shared a knowing look. Unlike the Twish's other holy sites, 5 talons worn by wind and water to nubs looked almost like fingers. The vast bird foot of a rock monument erected by Sangar's prior conquerors in honor of some long-entombed Vimount, one more warlord best left to history. Arik forewent the traditional prayers in favor of one to Eras. He beseeched the protection of iron for the strength to overcome the witherer's hold, and asked for strong wind and rain to douse the eastern smoke. A ceremony of few for the many. The rains washed mud through trails, sunk their wagons, and painted no way forward. Cups of kaf filtered at dawn were tossed for canteens of mead tapped at dusk. Cheers to drier days. Rather than slip and slosh, Gregor put his mind to prayer and joined Noshkri in foraging for Wraith's ointment.
Sweetba, for peace in the mind. Thistle root, for cleanin' the skin. Myrrh, for drawin' the fire out. Sap of the pinpine, for clearing the throat's venom.
Noshkri may be a strange fellow, but Gregor couldn't ask for a better botanical chum. Silent but for stories of plants and flowers, novel and not, Gregor hadn't much chance for this kind piece. This time would be best served studying the notes he'd taken on the ruins, the speaker, and the monster. Had he kept them, now torn pages tucked beside photographs into the magistrate's pocket. Wraith's green-eyed demon had clicked his boots and praised the savant even as he turned his back to the east and walked. May the wind take those pages to any left who'll listen. A better blessing would be if the concerns held within turned out no more significant than the anxieties of a dehydrated wanderer. Ooh, through the mountain gale, holding to me wagon, telling me age-old tale, passing by a dragon. Ooh, shite, that's a dragon, a dragon, a dragon. Ooh, shite, that's a dragon. Don't let it get me ale. Stomp, stomp down the road, it's coming for me wagon. What do we do when the rent is due? Guzzle down the flagon. Ooh, it's a dragon, a dragon, a dragon. So opened its maw, and what comes out? Oh no, it's a naggin, a naggin, a naggin. Ooh, shite, that's just me wife. Oh, had a knack for tweaking the mood. Before he and Gregor first knocked boots and knuckles, Kate whispered fond stories of her uncle from Orn. Schneider joined O's shanty, encouraging Boda and Kamut along until all who could joined in, jaunt overtaking somber wrongs. Popular among mosaic labour gangs, it welcomed Gregor to their large tent like warm supper. Baskets full of herbs on each arm, Gregor found Wraith lost in the sky. Closed eyes aflutter, her watcher flew the currents of a calm storm, witnessing some vast corner of Sangar. Whatever she saw inspired a song all of her own. She covered the sounds of joy and cheer with a song of sleeping fish under her breath. He stopped afar and tapped Gestalt to wagon wheel, summoning her attention. Brought what you asked. Nosh Kree's already at it. Figured we could give each other a hand, Gregor said. Good recipe, too. You've the makings of Blue Jay here, aside the caramelized apples and honeyglass. Your tam teach you this. Reyth rocked into sit, catching the shimmer of an owl on her outstretched perch. Imitating the life it stole, the anima ruffled metal feathers and picked grit from between the rain-wetted blades with an incisor beak.
The speaker,
she said, her earlier frustrations smouldered in shortness. He lingered until she invited him closer. Dabbing waxy driblets from her eyes with rainfall, Reyth joined him in a globe of the mundane. He cracked the sweet bar and shucked the murt. When instead of help, she glowered at him for his presence, he tossed husks to basket for midnight oil to read by, and gestured her on. Care to explain yourself? He asked.
I have wondered what me uncle saw that made him walk small-like in your footsteps,
she said, crushing thistle root. She took to work well. Like he, she used it to satisfy growing anxieties that bristled through her like ruffles across fur.
But despite you being soft, I wonder I have seen something like it. Sangar,
she said, but did not believe, glancing sideways at the lurking blade.
Gave me dreams, you, the speaker of the devil you let live.
Did you see that too? If so, maybe you should have stayed asleep. He laughed, his stab at humor met by a face full of powdered thistle, like a cinnamon cloud. He choked and sneezed.
I saw him kill ya, Eshi, the moment after If'n y'ad not believed me or taken his hand, y'ad be dead as the fish.
He considered such a scenario from the moment she'd broken Gestalt's bonds. He caught himself slipping into silent thought by the irritated look she gave his non-answer. Era, you. At the first name he gave of the first moon, someone lurking behind the trunk of a large tree stirred, as if called. He waited for them to show themselves, but they remained out of sight. Reyth didn't seem bothered, so he left it be. That old moon shapes dreams.
That's what the speaker spoke,
Reyth said.
She spoke you could never fall, that she was the eye of the mother, and she gives insight where there's no light.
She pantomimed with her bayonet striking out her bloodied eyes.
The only thing beside EU and Uyu who could see through the breath were dreamers.
For her faults, your speaker knew her celestial bodies. Do not, however, confuse this dream for anything other than a vision. What you saw was a premonition given to you, no doubt about it, but the meaning we derive is a similar hallucination.
I dunno wonder that. I was not guessing even as I was having it. Did you mean me to dream?
Reyth stole his murt to out Shucky. I did not know it could happen. Not like that. Some have achieved divination through great ordeal. Cherish anchors. Priest and priestess. Practice extreme asceticism in search of Nara, the star-eyed owl, harbinger of revelations. Your uncle looked into Gestalt and saw her truth. The cost. His vigor. Though it seems his vision was sent to him before we ever met. He told me he foresaw the clearing sky and the coming outsiders. What Arik had left out was how you defied him then, of your valor protecting those travelers. That, Boda told me later. See, Raspberry too honors Naran tradition. For Nara wore the avian-headed likeness of the Ordenstadt of Nier, the ancestral state of the Sevant, to whose kings she appeared the Maker's planeteer, a harbinger to bring peace to all mankind, in the shape of a green-eyed woman who had her eyes gouged out for the crime of divining the end of the endless age. Those 9 eyes bedazzle Is's Ugullan crown as he sits spiderish upon the intricately woven webs of he and his collegial peers, the ever-vigilant custodians of the ocular, ruling throughout eternity just beyond these mountains. I hate to dress Mason truths in magisterial robes, but our blood debts are long. When seeing Nara's knowledge, when seeking the future, you must be cautious. More beautiful minds than mine, such as Nara herself, say those who witness fate, become unable to choose otherwise.
'Tis na. Nara, 'tis not real.
She snorted out laughter and tucked Mert husk into its place like gristle and gnawed like on rubber. No? He knuckled beard and chin and gave a grin. It's a beautiful world.
Is na. I shook all Sangar to save your life. Nah, even you could have stopped me. The fish's betrayal was his, but it was not to be until you put me to sleep.
Please explain, Gregor asked.
You made your fate. Scylla, speaking with Green Eyes, was not going to give him a tick till she saw me.
She saw you? He popped a brow and cast his skepticism in with the sweetber shells, forming a growing mound. Impossible.
There's no wonder, Eshi. She did. She smiled, and told the devil where the fish swam.
How could she know? A more pressing concern halted his hands. How could she know I was here?
He's having a fit over me having new sight, you dunno,
she said, wearing joy, stabbing Petty. I am no prophetic authority, that is true, though I may know a thing or two.
We all grow in Sangar, Eshi,
Reyth said, lifting hands brown and wet, sloppy with sap.
She does not take us until we are ripe. There's time to grow wiser, nah? I wonder she sees through me eyes when they's gone dark.
Well put, he said, scooping bowls of mush into a coffee press made redundant by the self-heating calf dust paired with every Seren meal to eat. But is this a theory or a guess? Given its insistence, I suspect your blindness comes from a greater being.
With all the blood on me soil, you want more?
She spat fibre, goo and grime. The masticated husk ready for mixing, she bit down on a cheekful more.
There is more. They knew who you was. Said you was an artisan.
An artisan? The gasp came from Sophie. A lull as she clutched for silence slipped. She revealed herself by peeking around the strange black tree. Brands on bark, fingers curling to craggish scars in the uneasy irreverence of the unfaithful. Pardon the eavesdropping, sir, but tip-top no mark-up on the back play. You can't be serious. You're not. Nice of you to join us. Care to lend a hand? Gregor tossed fungal caps for mashing. She let them fall into the mud.
Shh, she's just got the grumps,
Reyth said. Trouble in Aga? Gregor chuckled, despite the danger, pulling the press to let it steep. We're not speaking at present, Sophie mumbled, crawling in from the rain, mud on her knees, the wash concealed tears, but not the puff of the cheeks. Whatever. Might I ask? No.
Nah.
His answer told twice he needn't ask thrice. Seems the two of you make a pair. To answer your question, they are mistaken. Gestalt has crossed artisan feathers, for I am their enemy. I come from pariahs, a third formation of exiles of the second order. So few of us remain, we no longer fraternize. Without comrades, I am nothing. A pilgrim, seeking a way, lending aid, against ailments myric and mundane. But Gestalt was no tool for the remedy of blistering buboes and contrived curses. She is a flood to douse a world once aflame. Now the cold cinders through which they now wandered. "Wow!" Sophie exclaimed. "You're a knight of the Third Order. I didn't think there were any of you left. Oh my goodness, Ray, this man, he's by eras. I don't know if it's an honor or a blasphemy. Good goddess, this is always so complicated." Gregor parried the conversation aside with renewed focus on refining plant parts. "Ray, tell him about the photograph," Sophie goaded as they slid into speaking again.
I is.
Reyth bumped her with a shoulder. Sophie nearly toppled over.
When I woke, one of the photos had marks like scratches from the ancients.
Could you recall the marks? He offered his pencil, showing her how to work it. More like carving stone than you'd think. This mineral is no Miria. It pushes a thin colour like dye or paint. He strung together the beads and diacritics of Rukanian to demonstrate, writing his name along theirs, enunciating the shapes of their morphemes. Gregor, Sophie, Reyth, Koi. He knew the photo. He'd clipped it and others to the pages of the journal he sent on the Westward wind. None had such writing. He felt cautioned against these gritty details. When he'd bound Gestalt, the glimpse overwhelmed him, roughed him up with fits, as it had Reyth. He'd have preferred Kate's calm critique to help him pass the meanings from the misgivings and the lingering phantasmagoria, rather than a comrade's firm clap. Like pushing marks to dirt with a stick, she dug out 3 quick glyphs. The characters vanished, fading from sight at the final mark. They'd been no syllabic alphabet like Rukanian or Church, but logographic glyphs, now a blank page. He'd leaned in, thumb to chin to consider, as if squinting could make them reappear. Reyth had seen it too, already starting to write it down again. "Wait," he said. "Don't. You saw that, right?"
Was that not supposed to happen?
Writing doesn't just vanish, Wraith. It's not natural.
Is anything any more?
Wraith returned his wax paper and he held it to Storm Grey as if searching for invisible ink. Isn't it Farform, Sir Ben? Sophie asked, surer than she sounded. Farform. Doubt pricked him again. Far be it from the sorcerer's wicked way to sneak in under a miracle's mantle. By the 1,000 curses of the dead, could he be so easily fooled? What trickster lurked? What imp giggled? Noshkree says, Sophie said pensively, and showed the scryer's tome from her saddlebag. It's everywhere. Raised choker and eyes, the ruins. Noshkree says there's anywhere from 3 to 5 full schema in this here book, he says. Or she. A wielder need only glimpse such schematics to learn their shape and attempt replication. He withheld that skepticism to challenge her other conclusions. Gestalt reveals these hidden characters to me. I heeded the ruinous forms of the Agla wall. Does it always? Sophie said, Noshkree says only those gifted with second sight can see it. His brow furrowed, and he looked to Reyth. She didn't seem to catch the implication, instead rewriting the scrawl over and over to watch it blur away. When is a gift not a gift? When it is a curse? What revelation could hide in this way? Could you take it from here and translate, if you'd be so kind? Isn't it wrong? Sophie asked, but balked not upon the lapse of faith. She did sit far from Acquire's habit. Perhaps Sophie found his flippancy unusual. It's not malfeasance to know the blasphemies of the heretic, Gregor said, feeling the words against his skin. To know them is to best undo them. You're not like the other Masons I know. She tucked Brand's underarm. Okay. But why a picture of Era? Sophie asked, choosing the rain over the crowded cover when moving from Gestalt. All Thessian minds dream before the moon presence, Gregor reiterated.
Because I wrote it there,
Reyth said, as if in the normal way of things. Maybe she had lost her sense of the meek and mundane, usual of magisterial types, immersed in esoteric wells. Yeah. You wrote this on Era with your mind? Sophie asked, with opening awe. Girls, it's on the photo. Reyth didn't go anywhere. Though Gregor felt doubt becoming more common a shade than gold or silver. Sophie clapped her cheeks to hide her blush. By Eras, of course. How silly shod. Wackadoodle, he added. Sophie faced the rain but turned it aside. The weald he'd previously mistaken for Noshkree's, bent the weave so the water curved around her. Eyes aglow, she lifted a calf-stained day planner from her shoulder bag, tucked between the scryer's weald book and Schneider's ledger. A bold weald for someone with branded hands and tainted muscle. Perhaps the closeness to Gestalt gave her brashness, like the confidence of a wall at your back when facing a crowd. Even then, sparks flew from strained sinew as she kept dry. This book is just for show. The work within is a family heirloom. Mostly, though, I use it to translate Bresh texts. Or lately I've been using it to transliterate Farform into Bresh using a codex. Once it's in Bresh, I can speak it to those who can't see it. Schneider documents all that we find and sends it back to Rook on his pigeons. She tapped the scryer's tome. It's slow. Rook, he caught. Murgard. Secrets throughout. Couldn't you learn Endish? Skip all that? Do you just translate it for Schneider? As I understood, you wielders. He approached the word carefully to avoid the sense of accusation. Need only glimpse the form to internalize it? First, you try learning Endish in Acquire's den. Sophie swallowed. And second, I'm helping out for Freezies. Please mind your business.
I told you she's sick with Grump,
Reyth said, uninterested in the technical details, focusing on the primitive pharmacology.
She's an endless, like Scylla.
Rey, I told you that in confidence, by the goddess.
And she has fangs like this.
Reyth put fingers to her lips, play-biting at the Estervac, but she hit the end of Gestalt and the curvature of the material and spun off into the mud. Confused but not deterred, Reyth went on.
She's got barbed wire on her teeth too. I taste metal, pinchy.
Gregor played confused to stop his laughter, lest the rain steam off Sophie's puffy red cheeks. Ugh, Sophie grunted. Reyth's teasing careless in the presence of a weald. Sophie showed some prowess and let the valve of self-esteem drip rather than risk Myrick focus and go supercritical. My Tam, she was endless, made of starlight. Father, a man, Schneider's a contractor of his from Murgard.
Yaviva ever seen one?
Reyth asked.
Even I has. They's got fangs, not metal tooths like you.
They've been wiped out, I guess. Sophie looked to Gregor, shy eyes bright. I have her canines, but his wisdom teeth. The wire keeps everything together. Otherwise, it's quite a mess.
That is gross.
Reyth spat more murt to show her grungy teeth.
Me teeth could gnaw like neshers and rip the barky bodies to the fruit.
Oh. Thanks. I guess. Sophie lifted the photo a bit higher to hide her lips and reach for the truth. I've never seen an ended either, Gregor said, to put Sophie's tensions at ease, for the sake of the Weald. Waiting out the rain, Gregor was pleased to see them so rambunctious. Tedium, mixed with extenuating fear, could muddy the mind. Not to linger long, he tapped the wagon wheel to get them back on track. Sophie breathed deep, honing the needlepoint concentration needed to actuate true alteration. Auroras of blue, green and violet swirled in the whites of her eyes, from the tips of her nails, murkier than the pyromancer's pure emerald mirrored. Scars deep in tissue made what would otherwise be clean effervescence bubble and crackle. As the words revealed themselves, restored from a feather's damage, her lips parted and her tongue danced behind hidden teeth.
Murokai.
Muttered sound washed over Sophie like a cloud of smoke. Suffocating, she began to cough. As if commanded, Gregor rose, hitting his back and shoulders on the bottom of the wagon's bed. Reyth, fetch Noshkri. Sophie, light as snow, came easy when pulled. Choking, gasping, puffs of ash burst from gasping lungs. In her eyes and cracked ribs, the reverb of screams lost to a tongue turned to ash. Reyth sensed the gravity but not its source, like the tides on the far reaches of Thess, on her lunar dark side where Era did not go. The change had frozen Reyth. Moments mattered and he bid her, quickly. A firm series of strikes to the back between protruding shoulders. Gregor held Sophie hard. Sophie rosy, unable to cry, scream or speak, Gregor fell from the work of worship. Noshkri came while Gregor plied locked jaw between braced teeth to find the damage. Cauterized at the root, the tongue reduced to no more. The incineration contained Gregor transposed Sophie into the wild material where Noshkri could work. He produced tinctures and bottles from under a purple poncho. A flick of imprecise claws drew the sick ash from lungs which he transfused for Bluejay, coaxed into aerosol by quick thinking and quicker wielding. Imminent danger passed, brief intensity strung out into lingering worry. Reyth crouched behind the Elesh as he worked, assessing the ash. Shod Sophie, still awake, eyes bugging, lungs dilated. Reyth trailed off.
Is she?
She will be okay, Noshkri answered. To my workshop. The appendage can still be replaced. The implication roused Sophie from shock. She squealed, but hadn't the choice to fight as the Elesh heaved her over his shoulder like a sack of potatoes. Gregor emerged from under the wagon to follow, but Noshkri gestured, "Stay." When Gregor insisted, Schneider stepped in, called by the commotion. "He'll have her tip-top and mumbling again in no time. What have you done, Sir Ben? What happened?" "Myrick blowback," Gregor said, peppering a lie with something like the truth. "Did you know she was a wielder?" Schneider shrugged and shook his head. A convincing act that pushed Schneider onto the defensive, away from further questions. That word, what Sophie said, not forgotten but meant for obscurity, as mere sound, dangerous, from the mouth of a wielder, devastating, the harm nothing more than a cruel echo, though he could not discount its source, a mind addled by Gestalt. Gestalt abhorred coincidence. However, the lures of wielders took the most devious designs. He, like anyone else, could bow to delusions of self-aggrandizement. There is no holy doomsayer or fortune-teller, only apocalyptic prophets, not fashioned since Velk himself. A clever trick, an illusion to distract him, placed upon that vinyl strip by alchem means, perhaps carved by endless hands. Reyth, an omen indeed, or a pathway for misdirection to be put before him. Everywhere the witherer's tendrils beguiling his schemes, enacted by endless puppets. Yes, surely this trick was put here by this speaker Scylla, knowing, for if this was no deception. Then the witherer sang, the necropolis bell rang. Bring out your dead. Against the adversary, corpses shall litter the stars.
Mirokai. Reveal yourself, Mirokai. I will wait for you.